Hi, this is author-philosopher Ronald E. Springer of EthicsUnderground.com, returning with a continuation of the reading of Moral Armor, Chapter 7, Part 20, Voluntary Service. Please hit like and subscribe before we dive in. There is a difference in public reaction to a civilian death versus a military death. We emotionally factor in that possibility for military personnel, given the risk involved in their occupation, versus what one would expect to encounter in private life. Military personnel and police officers should be well compensated for that potential materially and spiritually. First and foremost, they should always have a choice of whether or not to serve in such a manner, including for whom and for how long. Volunteer armies are always the strongest, and there are just as many responsibilities to be addressed at home if some choose not to fight. If the man next to me is not committed, I don't want my life in his hands. If he can't handle it, he shouldn't be here, and probably won't be for long. Let him support the war effort as a citizen, being useful in his own way. There is no shame in that. Let him object until he understands the issue at stake. No man should die for a principle he has not acquired. No man has the right to push another out onto a battlefield. It is a direct constitutional violation of our right to life. Sacrifice is leaned on mostly in troubled times, but it can become an abusive political instrument. No one wants to sacrifice ever, and they are right not to want to. Great care must be exercised before political leaders decide to risk one single human life. If we were threatened with invasion, I would fight without question, even knowing my chances of survival were not good. Resistance to aggression parallels the resistance to death that nature requires of us every day. Such a tribute to life is not a sacrifice. But to be forced to go and die for some dubious cause is a national disgrace, and suspicious intentions always surround those who advocate a draft. Vietnam was a foreign policy disaster for America, showing the link between involuntary armies and unnecessary wars. A draft is not about patriotism, but about creating an expense account in blood for munitions makers and those who finance them. Its draft dodgers were totally justified. We must see to it that nations never degrade to the point where they must move outside their borders to expropriate wealth and spread violence, which is only an extension of those in charge suffering the same intellectual degradation. That war was a direct result of such fascist, tyrannical powers seizing control of our executive office through the murder of President Kennedy. And they did here just what they do under socialism, practicing their pattern to murder, pillage, and destroy, at home and abroad. It should never be permitted to happen here again. War is a minus-sum gain to the mass citizenry, a pure expense in money and blood. Every building built, every creation brought into existence adds to our wealth and should be preserved. War just destroys it all, generating nothing but cost. No one benefits from war. No one wants to spend more than necessary, unless some intend to profit by it. Our foreign efforts are to assure protection and justice to our citizenry abroad, never to assist them in gaining property for themselves by military means. We must protect only what has been acquired by voluntary trade. When we go to the Persian Gulf to protect American interests abroad, it isn't only the rich we are protecting. Thousands work for our oil companies, and all Americans benefit from their existence. Next to money, fuel is the lifeblood of our economy. Everyone who drives a car, lives, or buys anything requires it. We as Americans are free to come up with another energy source, but if we don't, we drive what is available and should respect that its fuel is of vital interest to our economy and to our very lives. The leaders who stem conflict at the cost of the fewest human lives are the greatest of heroes. The best solve issues on moral grounds without ever firing a shot. As we must defend ourselves, this is not always possible, so we do counter aggression vigorously. The greatest men in government gear foreign policy to ensure a safe world for all of us to venture into, and they work to spread the axiomatic means to that freedom to all governments, who should want the same for their people. When they could care less about their people, we make them pay to trade with us, or refuse them altogether. That is the moral reason for tariffs, to deny slave labor an equal standing with our moral enterprises. Look at any totalitarian or socialist government and you'll see few loyal soldiers, but many eventual defectors. No one defects from America. Here, every man's life is valuable. Every man has the right to live without subordinating his desires to anyone, and that is a land worth protecting, worth fighting for, worth dying for, if necessary. If it came down to it, most Americans are willing to die for what America is, not for what it promises to be. The men of communist countries are considered expendable and are always left to die for the noble ideal, ideals which their fundamental premises make impossible. Americans don't have to create illusions about their country's potential greatness to be proud of. It is great. It is the nearest to Atlantis the world has ever been. That's all for now. Next up is philanthropy. I split these videos up by subject so you'd have a better chance of finding moral armor and then perhaps go through the whole thing for free. Why? To help create a leader in every life. Sound civilization stair steps up from sound coherence to sound individual to productive groups of mature individuals. Self-hatred drives fear-driven people in our world to wipe out the individual, so we all need moral armor to protect ourselves and the future of mankind. Click subscribe and leave a thumbs up if you'd like to help wipe out moral confusion fast and make the world a better place.